Many times we wonder what to do when we go through crisis. But God is infinite in power and love. God can turn a crisis into a victory. He can turn a challenge into a miracle. Not necessarily that we should look for miracles. We should rather look for God and for relationship. But we need to remember that nothing happens by chance. All things, and all means all things work together for the benefit of those who love the Lord. Basically, God allows things for a purpose that we don't understand. And if we don't know Him, we are going to stress and struggle and panic. But if we know Him, even when we don't understand what's going on in our lives, we are going to trust in Him and have peace. I'm going to give you a story that would illustrate that very well. I was in the army. In Romania, everybody had to go to the army in that time. And because I was a student in university, I didn't have to go to the regular army, but rather to a special type of army where students would go. And it was a shorter term and so on. And so I was in the army, I was a lieutenant, and they put their eyes on me and they said to me, "We know who you are. You are an Adventist." I said, "Yes. We don't believe in God. In this country, we are communist. So we are not going to allow you to do what you want." Well, the captain came to me. I'm not going to mention his name. He was a very angry man. He had curly hair. When he would talk, he was spitting. He would talk so much and so much saliva in his mouth that he was spitting all the time. You need an umbrella to protect yourself from him. And he was angry and he says, "We don't believe in God. I'm going to teach you a lesson. And if you don't obey, I'm going to put you in prison and destroy you and terminate your life." In my mind, I said, "You don't look like the Terminator, like Schwarzenegger." But, I didn't say anything. I wanted to be polite. But my father taught me that I should not fear people. If you fear people, you must have a very small God. Because when you have a big God, you don't need to be afraid. When you have big problems, that means that you have a small God. Because if you have a big God, it's not that you don't have problems. You do have problems. But compared to God, they seem very small. Because if God is with you, you don't need to worry. He will be with you. You are never alone. And if He allows it, He will support you, give you strength, and help you. You put your eyes on God. You don't put your eyes on problems. And so, I was not afraid of Him. I said I will put my eyes on God. But it's easy to tell the story, not so easy to go through the story. When you go through challenges, it's a little more difficult than just to tell about challenges. And so, again and again, He would make sure that I follow what the communist regime, what the government says, not what my God says. They didn't allow me to have a Bible or to go to church. My girlfriend, that later became my wife, would send me letters, long letters, 15 pages or more. And though she writes very nice, she purposely used a very bad writing so they could not understand. And she wrote nonsense about cooking, about games, about soccer, about ping pong, about tennis. And she would write garbage and write nothing and write nothing. And after about 7-8 pages, she would put a paragraph from the Bible and a paragraph from inspired books. And she did that because everything was censored. The communist regime would read every letter to make sure that there is no religious material in it. And they would read a little and say, garbage, and they would stop reading. When I get the letter, I would cut out the garbage and keep only the paragraph. In the morning, I would ask God to wake me up early. And with a little flashlight under the blanket, before the other soldiers would wake up, under the blanket, I would spend time with God. You cannot have a relationship with God unless you spend time with Him. You cannot trust Him or know Him unless you spend time with Him in prayer and study. So I would spend time in prayer. And that gave me strength for the day. When I would go through trials, I had God's presence and I had peace. One Saturday, Sabbath morning, the captain came to me and he called me outside and he put me in front of the other soldiers. And then he talked to me, said, "I'm going to give you an order. You have to work today." I said, "I cannot work. It's Sabbath. The Bible says that you don't work on Sabbath." "There is no God. There is no Bible. It's garbage. No God can help you. Nobody can save you from our hand. Nobody would save you from the communist regime, from the government. He said, I gave the command, you obey me. You don't obey me, you go to prison. And if you don't obey me, between you and me, it's 2, 3, 4 years prison. But if you don't obey me in front of the other soldiers, you undermine my authority. It's going to be 7 to 12 years prison, sometimes more, 13, 14 years prison. And if during the war, we'll just execute you. And then he ordered the other soldiers to get straight. They all got straight, they saluted him, and after they got aligned, he ordered me to take 3 steps forward. Bang, bang, bang. I took 3 steps. And then he said, I want you to dig a hole in the ground. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. It's Sabbath. He said, it's a command. I said, why would I do that? Well, let's imagine that there are enemy airplanes flying and you need to dig a hole to hide from the enemies. I looked up. I said, there is no enemy airplanes attacking me. I want you to imagine that there are enemy airplanes. I said, well, then you imagine that I dug the hole. He got so angry. He said, if you don't dig the hole, you go to prison. I said, well, do whatever you want. I'm not going to work today. There is no God to save you. I said, well, my God can save me, as the 3 young men. But even if he doesn't, I will not compromise. I will put God first, above my freedom, above my life. He got so angry that I disobeyed him in front of the other soldiers. He left the training field. He went back to the garrison. He called an emergency meeting with all the officers. And then he proposed maximum prison, 14 years. In a difficult prison in Caracal, that was the name of the city. He proposed prison for me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go to prison 14 years. In prison is not a good life, what happens to you there. Plus they beat you, plus they torture you. And he said to me, in prison, we are going to break you and teach you to break Sabbath. And if you don't, we are going to prolong your sentence more and more and more years. I went to the warehouse. I was in charge of the warehouse. All the materials were stored. I locked the door and I started to pray. And very interesting. First, I prayed for myself. Lord, protect me. Help me. I don't want to go to prison. Please help me. But it came in my mind what my father used to say to me. Are you focusing on self or you focus on God? How do you pray? Because the more you focus on self, the more you actually worship self. But when you forget self and focus on God, you worship God. And only when you put God first, He can work in you and through you. My father said to me, everyone in the Bible was willing to surrender and sacrifice self and put God first. And the Bible says that if you put Him first, He will take care of the other things. That was a difficult prayer to pray. But I remembered, what if Joseph didn't go to prison? God could have never worked through him. He was prime minister of Egypt because he accepted to trust in God and go to prison. What if Daniel said, please, I don't want to go to Babylon as a slave. But because he trusted in God in difficult circumstances, God not only worked in his character, but God used him to work for others. So I prayed a difficult prayer. I said, Lord, I really don't want this trial in my life. I don't want to go to prison. But you say that all things work together. So I'm going to decide, though I don't understand, I'm going to decide to trust in you. So I give you permission. I give you my consent. Do whatever you want. And if you want me to be free, let me be free. And if you want me to go to prison, give me strength to trust in you and go to prison and to go wherever I would honor you. If you need me in prison and I would serve you in prison and people would be saved in prison, then let me go to prison. Do whatever you want that would honor you, but work in a way that these communist people would know that there is a God and they will have a chance to be saved. While I was praying, after I gave up praying for myself, after I gave up my freedom, and I was ready to accept God's will, and I said, whatever you want, I will accept it. Whatever would serve you and honor you and help people to know you. After I surrendered, after I was willing to sacrifice myself, instantly I had peace. My problem was not solved, but I had peace. I could sense God's presence next to me in prayer. In that moment, somebody knocked in the door of the warehouse. Pavel, are you inside? I opened the door. It was a sergeant, Chuchu. And he says, Pavel, do you know what happened? I said, no. He said, do you know the general? And he said the name of the general. I said, no, I don't know him. Well, there are 4 armies. All armies belong to one of these 4 branches. And he's the general of one of the armies of Romania. And he came unannounced to visit and to inspect our garrison. And he found us in a meeting. We were in a meeting to put you in prison. We were ready to vote, all of us, to put you in prison. And he said, I came to inspect your garrison, and I am impressed. The driveway is fixed. Last time, 2 years ago, it was broken. Who fixed the driveway? And they said, well, Goia. Who is Goia? A soldier. How much did you pay him? Oh, he did it as a volunteer. I noticed you have new windows. Last time there were windows broken. Who fixed the windows? They said, Goia, he knows how to cut glass. He fixed the windows. How much did you pay him? Oh, nothing. After 4 or 5 p.m., he goes around and as a volunteer, out of his heart, if there is something broken, he would fix it. Well, I noticed that the fence was broken and now it's fixed. Who fixed the fence? Goia. The roof was leaking. Who fixed the roof? Goia. Man, this Goia does everything. How much did you pay him? Nothing. Did you put a picture with him next to the flag and say, this is the kind of soldiers we want? Everybody should be like him. Did you honor him? No. Why are you in a meeting? We want to put a soldier in prison. Who? Goia. Why would you put him in prison? Well, he didn't work on Saturday. What did you ask him to do? To dig a hole to hide from planes. Why would you ask him to do that? There is no war. Does he work the other days? Oh, yeah. Does he does propaganda against the regime, against the government? No. He's a hard worker. He's a good soldier. Does he love his country? Yes. Then leave him alone. If you touch him, I will make sure that you lose your jobs. Don't you touch him. And then the sergeant said to me, do you know the general? I said, no, but I know somebody bigger. He said, what? Probably he thought that I know the president of the country. I don't know, but I was referring to God. From that day on, nobody touched me. Nobody touched me. They would walk by, they would salute me, and they would say, oh, you don't have to work on Saturday. You can go home. You can do whatever you want. Just call the general and tell him that we take care of you. Maybe he would give us a promotion. I told them, I know somebody bigger than general. I don't know the general. They said, oh, we know you know somebody bigger. Just call them and talk to them about us. It was not easy to go through the story. When you go through crisis, even if you don't understand what is going on, when you put God first and when you know Him, He will give you peace. And not only that He will give you peace, but He is able to turn a crisis into a victory, a challenge into growth, into an experience with Him. And He will give you peace, and He will give you strength, and He will be with you, and you are never alone.